Hello everyone, welcome to the Inkstorm. My name's Inque, and we are here for another episode of Love, Death, and Ranting with my special guest, where we discuss a particular Netflix animated compilation series which we have thoughts about. Say hello.
Hello, I'm the specialist of guests. I'm Awfulwaful, also known as Ari, and I also have many thoughts.
So we've had a bit of a delay since our last episode.
Yeah.
Suffice to say, one thing after another occurred for one or the other of us.
Yeah. A lot of it was my just random health problems on my end, so I apologize for that.
Random health problems your end. I was dealing with things on mine. Shit happens, And we decided from the start that this was going to be as unofficial and amateur as possible. So,
yep. Consider
the unexpected delays to be part and parcel of that. You're welcome. We strive for authenticity. Anyway, today we are going to be discussing, well, a very special episode.
Very special episode. There were no drugs involved in this one.
This is episode... Which episode is this, actually?
Beyond the Aquila Rift for us was, episode 8?
Episode 8.
Yeah.
Episode
I'm
8.
A genius.
Beyond the Aquila Rift. You also just have a better memory than me in a lot of
I
cases.
literally guessed. I just straight guessed.
I'm trying to make you look better. Shh.
Don't. then people will have expectations of me, and I can't live with that.
Well, Beyond the Aquila Rift. Well, as usual, spoiler warning, we're going to talk pretty much in depth about every episode we discuss on this show, and if you haven't watched the episode in question, spoilers. Also, content warning. So many content warnings for this one.
Yeah. Let's see. Content warning for gratuitous sex, nudity, arachnophobia.
Yeah, this has
no space. Do people get freaked out about space?
Space. Ancient memes.
Yeah. Mind control. I don't know if that's like a thing.
Sure. I mean, mind control might be a stretch, but mental fuckery.
Yeah, mind fuckery.
Yeah. Yeah, sex. I think this might be the most explicit sex in the entire series. And it's still pretty softcore, but it's.
I mean, you see everything but the actual dick going in her,
Yeah, pretty much.
It's pretty explicit without being straight up porn, and
to a kind of unnecessary extent.
Really, really unnecessary.
I mean, I can offer a defense there, in that if you know what happens, there's some fridge horror going on, but at the same time, they could have done that without being that graphic about it and spending probably a good 1/8 of the episode on that scene.
Yeah. I have more thoughts about this, but don't let me stop you.
Alright, well, I'll go ahead and explain why I like this episode, as I've mentioned in the past. This is the only time in Love, Death, and Robots we go into straight cosmic horror, which is a genre which, and people dabble into it here and there, but it's not that commonly seen in visual media, I think.
Yeah, no, I've seen it a lot more in written stuff.
Yeah.
You're right.
conceptually, it's wonderful and super creepy, and it feels very classic in a sense. Ship gets thrown off course, ends up lost somewhere in the galaxy, and the protagonist thinks that everything's fine, except no, big surprise. He's literally wrapped up, pretty much literally wrapped up in a web by an alien telepathic spider.
Yeah, it's the space trapdoor spider trope. We all know that one. I joke, but that's actually like kind of a thing that I've seen pop up occasionally, like as an idea.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to the classic Greek siren myths and other stuff as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, very sure.
It's blending a few different concepts together, but
it's almost like it's sci-fi.
Yeah, it's sci-fi. It's cool.
No, I just mean sci-fi does that. They just take shit and blend it together.
Oh, right, yeah. Aesthetically, like the episode itself is beautiful. It's probably the most. I'm not going to say the most because I don't remember all of them super well, but it's definitely among the most photorealistic of the episodes. Which, I mean, it's a stylistic choice. It's not superior inherently because of that, but it's very well done.
Yeah, I actually I don't prefer this style, to be honest. Personally, just because like I've seen some people see this episode and then they stop halfway through and they're like, oh my god, this is CGI, this is all fake. Like, this is all animated, and I'm like, yeah, if you're paying attention to the body movements of the people, or like the actual mouth movements, or all the little motions that people make, they're wrong. There's just there's subtle wrongness about it that is like this kind of style tends to give people uncanny valley.
Syndrome. Very much so. It's very much a love it or hate it kind of style.
I don't hate it. I just don't prefer it because it's like a really big. This is such a tiny fucking detail. Not the reason that I don't like the episode particularly, but like when at the very beginning when they're getting ready to ship out, and she says, "I found us a faster way to go to the thing, and we only make 2 stops, and I'm just the best." And he's like, "That's what I'm talking about." When he raises his arm, I can just see that it's like, that is not how a person would normally raise their arm. It's too stiff. It's a little too high. It's a little weird. And it's like all those little moments throughout the entirety of the episode just bother me. And if it was cartoonish, it wouldn't matter. It would not fucking matter.
I mean, that is the blessing and the curse when it comes to photorealistic animation in any setting. If it's less realistic, then it can get away with that kind of thing. But if you are setting yourself that standard, then anything which goes wrong does stand out more. You're definitely the more visually literate of the two of us, because, visual artist as opposed to writer.
It's like I do it for not living.
But, there are a few things like that which I noticed as well.
Yeah.
That being said, I did like the creature design. I thought that they managed to both make something which was super creepy, and they managed to get that very spidery movement down. We didn't see a huge amount of her, which helps. But...
I think that was honestly for the best. I think the fact that we really only get a tease of creatures when they're backing out and he's looking around and being horrified initially. We see a couple of what look like maybe legs moving around, all spidery-like. And then we only see her very briefly, and half of that is the shadow is playing to make her look like she's at least somewhat humanoid-looking woman walking out of the shadows, and then surprise, no, you fucked a spider in the face,
Yes, well.
I really liked the creature design, and I think one of the reasons it works so well in the style is because it can come off as realistic, but it's not, you're not comparing it to anything aside from very what's the word, tangential, it's spider-ish, but it's covered in skin, that kind of thing. It's cousin to a spider. It's not an actual spider. We're not thinking, oh, does this look like a spider? It's just, oh, it's an alien that kind of reminds me of spiders. So it works much better with the style, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd go with that. So let's see. I liked the creature design. I liked the overall concept, and I'm a sucker for cosmic horror in general. And I thought that, making allowances for the short story, what's the word? The short story medium, where you can kind of get away with jumping a little bit, taking certain things as read. Because otherwise, if in a longer form story you have to slow down and explain everything as you go along, in a shorter form story you can just bounce between the points and infer the rest. And I thought that the story here worked pretty well. It's just kind of it's a broad strokes thing. Once you start looking at a few details and a few choices about what they did, then I think that's probably where you're going to start complaining. But I could be wrong. I've said my piece. What's your
okay? All right. I don't necessarily think you're wrong. In a lot of times when we end up disagreeing about stuff is that we actually agree on a lot of the points, but we disagree about the importance, I guess, of said points. Because I agree, the broad stroke story is fine. It could be more interesting, I think, but it's fine. The first time we saw this episode, I was like, all right, this is whatever. It's not great and it's not good, but it's a story, and it's at least the sex and the focus on sex and the fact that Greta is so focused on sex is, maybe the original Greta was like that, and we can infer that this dude, Tom, does not remember her as being anything other than, sex focused. Talked about breaking a bed in a hotel. And
there's that little early line of Flang 3 years ago. The brain tends to focus on certain things, but
and I okay, assuming that the spider is, or the spiders, however many there are, I don't know, assuming that they're psychic, assuming that, because he's not hooked into anything at the end, we see that it's probably psychic. The fact that she's just feeding off of his memories and creating this thing for him to just accept and be distracted by. Okay, fine, it's sexual, but that was the problem I have, I guess, the big problem I have. It didn't have to be. This was a choice by the writers who made this story. This was a choice about who the character of Tom was. This is a choice about who the character of Greta was. And I fucking hate it. And I hate it because it's boring. I hate it because this is a really interesting premise that there is no reason for Tom to cling to Greta. There's no reason, it's sex. Woohoo. I actually found the relationship between, the little bit we get to see of it, between Tom and, fucking Christ, I've forgotten her name, of course. The
Navigator.
Yeah, the Navigator. The relationship between them, which is very obviously, not sexual. There's no indication of any kind of romantic or sexual entanglement there at all. I found that more compelling than the shit with Greta. Like, there is no... Sex does not stand in for emotional attachment.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair criticism. The characters in Beyond the Aquila Rift definitely, if you take them outside of the plot and just look at them in their own terms, are all really fucking flat.
Yep.
And
the Navigator gets to be more interesting on screen with like the maybe 3 or 4 minutes that she's actually awake for total, spread out across the entire episode, than the main character is throughout the entire goddamn thing. Like, that's how bad it is. It's flat. It doesn't interest me. I have no reason to care about this dude. And that's the thing about the horror, is that if you want to make it work, yes, the setting has to be fucking horrific, and the truth has to be scary. You need to care about the characters. You need to empathize with them in some fashion. And like, you can have horror where it's just like, where the main character is just a douchebag and you're just waiting for him to fucking get eaten. But that was not what this was either. It's just, fuck you. Here's it's a spider. He fucked a spider in the face. Isn't that creepy? Ah! I don't care. I hope he got his dick bitten off. I do not care. And it's like, I'm not saying that, like, you can't have stories where sex plays a major role, but it's like, I was talking to, who was I talking to? I think I was talking to my mother, actually, the other day, about how if you're going to have sex in a story that is not erotica, that is not, the purpose is not to get somebody off, then the sex has to have one of two purposes. Either it has to serve the story, or it has to serve for character growth. If it does not serve either of these things, there is no point in having it in there. You can allude to it, but fucking focus on your story or your characters. This was 16 fucking minutes. There was no reason for it to be this long.
Yeah. I mean, kind of the thing that I suspect. The thing that I suspect for the writing of this particular episode, I'm actually kind of intrigued to know what the original story was like that they adapted it from. How much this is the fault of the original, how much is the fault of adaptation. But it kind of feels like they took a concept and they didn't write characters, they wrote plot devices.
Yeah. Plot devices with caricatures slapped on top.
Because caricatures are... It's not even caricatures, it's... although that's what it came out as, it's archetypes as easy substitution for character.
Archetype's probably a better word. Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, it's a short story. You can't fucking have like amazing character growth and shit. But this is
I think I forgive this episode a bit more than you do because of that.
I don't, because of Sunny's Edge.
Yeah, that's fair.
To explain that, because we know each other enough that you probably know what I'm talking about, like, immediately, but to actually, like, explain that out to anybody who's listening, we had some problems with Sunny's Edge, but it was okay. Content warnings aside. The side characters and the main character, and even the villains, had more personality than anybody. Like, one of them had more personality than all of these characters combined, and they did it in less time.
Weren't they the same length?
No. Sunny's Edge is shorter. Let me double check. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure Sunny's Edge is shorter.
No, I think you might be right, actually. Aquila Rift. I'm pretty sure Aquila Rift is the longest in the series. Let me pull up my references. No, Sunny's Edge is also 17 minutes.
Oh, I was wrong.
Yeah, Aquila Rift.
Asshole me.
Suits. Sunny's Edge.
I mean, my point still stands, but that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, the devil's advocate argument I'll make, I'm not saying you're wrong about any of this, I'm just throwing out, points of consideration, I guess.
Yeah, like you do.
Is that Sunny's Edge is a pretty simple story. And Aquila Rift was trying to pack more in to those 17 minutes. It was trying to
No. Sorry, I'm gonna stop you right the fuck there. Because this effectively comes down to a story with Aquila's Rift specifically, or beyond the Aquila Rift, has, yes, there is a third member of the crew. Yes, we saw that there were theoretically, although they are obviously fake, people on the station. But this is a story with, at most, 2.5 characters. You have Tom, you have Greta, you have the Navigator, who shows up for maybe a quarter of the runtime total, or maybe like a third, actually. But it is, and the story is, ship gets lost in a navigation era, ends up in a sand trap. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Yeah. Alright. Fair enough. I will concede the point there.
You know, of course I was going to be right, because I'm the wife, because I called it first. The complexity of the relationship between Tom and Greta should have been the focus. There should have been reason for Tom to be distracted. There should have been reason for Tom to want to stay or to want to keep the lie. That's where the tension really should have come in. That would make the return, like him being unable to cope with the thing and returning to the dream effectively, even when he said he had to know, that would have made that more impactful. It would have made the horror more horrific. Because then it's like, imagine if instead of like her sitting down in that sexy dress with her unmoving titties and talking about a time when they broke the fucking bed and being obviously wanting to ride that dick, she had showed up, and I don't even care what the fuck she would have been wearing, but she would have showed up, they would have sat down, they would have had a talk about, like, cut the sex scene in half at least, give that time over to them talking about what they've missed, about each other, about some conversation they had, about something that ties them together, about, Greta being like, hey, is that Navigator like your new squeeze? And him being like, no, that's not. And then then it's like, so she's still interested in him, and he's still interested in her. Like he never like gave up on her, or couldn't stop thinking about her, so he never really got with anybody else. Like make that relationship the focus. Like that's where the complexity should have come in, and it's not there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent about rewriting this thing.
I mean, you do that. I still vividly remember you talking at length about your Aladdin rewrite.
Oh my god, that I will never write.
Yeah, well. So looking up the guy who wrote the original story.
Oh yeah, was this one of the ones that was written? This was not one of the ones that was not written by.
This was not written for Love, Death and Robots. No.
Okay, right.
This was written by a man called Alistair Reynolds, who is pretty long-term British science fiction author, actually.
Yeah, the name sounds vaguely familiar.
Interestingly enough, he wrote another story which has been adapted into Love, Death and Robots. Zima Blue.
Huh.
Which kind of makes me think that, yes, this is an adaptation thing, because... I mean, Zima Blue was not fantastic, but it definitely didn't have the same issues as this one.
Mm-hmm.
And Beyond the Aquila Rift was... like, he's mostly written short stories and compilations, it looks like. But Aquila Rift was apparently a big enough deal that it got... it titled one of his compilations after it had been initially published.
Huh. Yeah, you keep calling them compilations. Is that the English term for anthology?
Sure. Close enough.
Okay. Alright. Because, I would call, Love, Death, and Robots is an anthology. A grouping of short stories would be an anthology. That kind of thing. That could also be because my mother is an English professor, now that I think about it.
I don't know the etymology sufficiently to say one way or the other, to be honest.
Fair enough. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, okay, no, I'm going to concede the point.
I mean, you're allowed to that's the thing, is these are our opinions. You're allowed to like this episode.
Yeah. I still do. It kind of goes back to my personal mantra when it comes to media of any kind, actually, which is that just because you like something doesn't mean it isn't trash. 2, you are allowed to like trash.
Yeah.
Which are two points that I wish more of the world would embrace.
Yeah. I guess the thing is, I think a lot of people do kind of cling to the you're allowed to like trash thing. But they don't. I don't know if it's most, but a lot of people don't look critically at the media they consume. I'm overly critical, but I also that's how I get better as an artist. I watch for the details and I pick them apart because I want to know what I can learn from the thing that I'm consuming. It's also helped me become conscious of problems that I would miss just because of shit that I either didn't or couldn't have grown up with. That kind of thing.
Alright, so, that was Beyond the Aquila Rift. Which, yes, spider fucking. Yep.
Yeah, the placement of the mouth on that thing was not lost on me. There's a hole between, a gaping mouth hole between the fucking legs, quote unquote, of that feminine shape of the monster. And God, the first time I saw that episode, I was like, he done stuck his dick in a spider.
Yeah, I have a feeling that our horror movie reviewer friend would have words to say about the symbology there, because
God,
she does love going off on one about sex and horror.
Yeah.
Quite justifiably, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, next episode we are going into happier territory.
Are we?
We are.
What's the next one?
Good Hunting.
Oh, sure.
Which is actually, I think, probably my favourite episode of the entire series. It's at least in the top 3.
It's definitely up there for me. I have some problems with it, but I really liked it overall.
Yeah. So you have that to look forward to next time. I'm not going to say stuff that isn't problematic, because this is Love, Death, and Robots, guys. If this series didn't have problems everywhere, we wouldn't be doing this fucking series.
I mean, if this series couldn't be, like, labeled as, like, you know, fucking problematic, we'd probably just be like, oh, it was fine. Oh, it was kind of boring, but it was fine. Oh, this episode was fine. Oh, this was fine.
Yeah. And we'd probably have looked at each other by the second episode and been like, so why are we doing this YouTube thing again?
Right, time to crawl back into our holes.
Alright, well, either way, you can look forward to that episode sometime soon. No more catastrophic delays. Touch wood. So, yes, in the meantime, hopefully all of you out there have not been tricked by spiders. And
if you see a spider out there, just think twice before you stick your dick in it, you know?
Yep.
It's tempting, but...
Yeah.
Refrain.
No, there's stuff I could say there, but I'm not going to. I'm just not, for the sake of decency. Anyway, until next time, folks, I've been Inque.
I've been Awfulwaful.
Are you okay there? I'm
Sorry, I'm just giggling over fucking some dude somewhere out there just seeing a spider, like, spinning a web in the corner. He's like, starts sweating. He's like, oh god, you spin that web.
I mean, that's an
I'm
image.
sorry. Yep, I'm so sorry.
You
Goodbye.
are welcome, Internet.